right, good afternoon, everyone. We'll call to order the City of Murfreesboro Board of Zoning Appeals regular meeting for April 24th, 2024. First item on our agenda is a determination of a quorum, and with 4 of the 5 members of the board present, we do have a quorum today. Excuse me. Next item is the public comment section. Has anyone requested to speak today?
Yes, sir.
All right, so next we'll move to the consideration of minutes for the regular meeting on March 21st. I looked over the minutes since I was absent from that meeting and noticed, I guess my name appeared there down in approval of the motion. So we have a copy of the adjusted minutes there. I think the rest of the flow, I guess, seemed plausible, but anybody else see anything, changes needed for those minutes?
No. Move for approval as amended.
Okay. We'll,
Second.
all right. Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, those minutes have been approved there with the changes. Next, we'll move to new business. Have special use permit requests today. The first one is application Z24005 by Mr. Michael Sandifer, representing Vogue Towers 2 LLC. They are requesting a special use permit in order to construct a 125-foot tall wireless telecommunications tower in a commercial highway zone. This is for property at 710 Memorial Boulevard. Mr. Barbie, if you'd review that application for us.
Good afternoon, Chair Young, Chair Young and members of the Murfreesboro Board of Zoning Appeals. This next application before you for consideration today is a special use permit in order to allow a 120-foot tower with a 5-foot tall lightning rod on top, which would be a total of 125 feet overall. The tower location is 710 Memorial Boulevard. The actual tower itself will be located behind the current shopping center that's been developed there. You can see this green square on your screen. That's the location of where the tower will actually be once constructed. The center is currently developed with businesses such as Avalon Athletics, Murfreesboro Outdoor and Bicycle, which is known as Moab. Goodwill Industries are also located there as well. Mm-hmm. The surrounding properties to the north and west, northwest and south, are all currently developed as commercial properties. You have Nissan of Murfreesboro to the north. First Bank is on the corner to the west, along with several other commercial businesses along both Memorial Boulevard, Rice Street, and North Front Street. To your eastern side of the property, you have the St. Clair Street Senior Center, which is located here. You also have Murfreesboro Housing Authority's West, I just forgot the name of it, that's awful. Westbrook Residential Towers, which are located in this area. And then from that direction south, most everything else is also developed as a commercial business in the commercial highway district as well. The applicant has submitted drawings that show where the tower will be located. They have also provided some additional images that will show potentially what the tower will look like from different venues around the tower location. This is showing the Westbrook Towers. You can see in there, see where this is roughly what the tower would look like once completed from that view. Of another image from in front of Florida Brothers. You can barely see it. I believe this is it in the background here.
I think that's from.
Actually, I'm sorry. It's just to the right of it.
I think that's from East Lytle, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
This is from the front along Memorial Boulevard. You would see the structure above the Avalon Athletics building on this side. And I believe this is this Maple?
Mm-hmm.
Could be.
Where you can just barely see it sticking out over the trees on this side. The side as constructed would also have landscaping around the border of the vinyl fence to provide privacy and screening. for the mechanical equipment that's associated with the tower. Staff has reviewed the application and the responses provided by the design team. The site and application are generally in good order. All the standards of general applicability for the special use permit appear to have been met. Staff would request that if the site is approved, that we would request the following 5 conditions of approval. That the fence provided would be vinyl clad, double slided to minimize views of the equipment inside of the equipment from right-of-ways and adjacent properties. That the applicant should obtain all necessary permits and inspections for the property, for the proposed tower and associated structures. Prior to applying for building permit, the applicant should obtain approval for a site plan for the proposed development to the Murfreesboro Planning Department. Improvements depicted on the approved site plan shall be constructed simultaneously with the tower, including but not limited to required fencing and landscaping. The maximum height of the monopole and telecommunications antenna structures and all appurtenances or accessory equipment shall not exceed a total height of 125 feet. And in the event of discontinuance of the telecommunication facility, the facility owner shall comply with the requirements of the City of Murfreesboro zoning ordinance, Chapter 31, for notification, declaration, and removal of the wireless facility. Our applicant is with us today. If you have any questions, I'm also available as well.
Thank you. Any questions for staff at this point?
Yeah, I do. Do we still apply any kind of fall zone to these? And if so, what is it?
Yes, sir. The fall zone that is shown on your screen here is an adjusted fall zone. And Michael may be better able to explain this than I am. The total fall zone per ordinance is 120 feet. The city engineer has reviewed the data that was provided by the structural engineer that designed the tower to approve a reduced fall zone to 60 feet because the tower is designed that if it's under load, it will break at a particular point and only impact a 60-foot radius instead of a 120-foot radius.
The ordinance requires the tower to be set back a minimum distance of its own height from all property lines. However, that setback can be reduced if they provide documentation of a reduced fall zone, which, as Mr. Barbie mentioned, they have provided that. And so the fall zone that, as indicated by their structural engineer, is based upon the tower collapsing on itself, and then so that fall zone is still within the bounds of the property and does not encroach onto other properties. And our, as Mr. Barbie mentioned, our city engineer has reviewed that and she has the authority to reduce the setback based upon that information, and she has reviewed that information from the structural engineer and concurred to allow the reduced setback.
Do we require a certain amount of insurance, like, or any kind of like insurance requirements in case those fall zones aren't, like, for whatever reason they don't work?
I'm not aware of us requiring any insurance, but I would defer that to Mr. Hankins.
Yeah, I don't think there's any requirement for insurance listed in the zoning ordinance.
Just curious. It being such a, a lot of times these are in more rural area, like it'll be in a bigger field, and this is a much more urban situation than what we've seen in the past. So, I mean, I see what Mr. Halliburton asking that question. I could see properties being impacted potentially if that fall zone isn't, but I'm not the engineer, so.
We've approved
Have we improved in?
several since I've been here. From my recollection, I think a couple that come to my mind are over behind the Old Roses. I think we approved that one. I think we approved one over there by off of South Church Street behind the Kroger's over there.
Yeah, I remember.
If memory serves.
Yeah.
That were all, and I was, so those are, I guess, urban locations too. But did I understand you say that with the regulations say 120 feet, and this one is still in compliance with that?
No, so
Or what?
so the kind of the default setback is the height of the tower.
Right.
But our ordinance gives folks an ability to
Right.
reduce that based upon the documentation that they provided. Here, they're showing,
I couldn't tell.
Mr. Barbie,
Can't read. Let me
that's,
see if I can zoom in on that.
looks like it's probably, it still exceeds the fall zone of the tower, but it's less than the 120 feet. I'm thinking it's 80-something,
Oh.
88,
Is it 88?
89 feet.
Completely misread that, so.
Yeah, so it still exceeds the fall zone that has been provided to us by the structural engineer, but doesn't quite get to the original default 120-foot setback.
I think that's the property line, the fall zone, 62 feet.
Yeah.
62 feet 6 inches is
Yeah, I think what Mr. Tips was asking was it still set back 120 feet from the property line? It's not set back 120 feet, but it's still, the setback of the tower still exceeds what would be required by the reduced fall zone.
And that's the building back here, so. It's, I mean. Yeah.
There was a time where we addressed heights of different towers depending on where they were. I guess as the city statute have changed through the years, that's not something that we're concerned with, or is 125 a magic number in this area?
So actually, I'm glad you brought that up because there was a change in our ordinance that was approved last year. So height variances are, whenever we have a height variance come before y'all, it puts y'all in a bad position because you're supposed to be looking at unusual circumstances, practical difficulties on the property that necessitate a variance. Well, it's really hard to tie a height variance to conditions on the property. It's so the ordinance was amended, and it basically says that the height of the tower is whatever the Board of Zoning Appeals sets it as. So they can as a part of the special use permit process. So they're requesting the 125-foot total, and it's within your purview to review that requested height. And if for some reason you felt strongly that the height made it not conform to the standards of the special use permit, then you would have the ability to modify that height. So I think the height of this proposed tower is consistent, and to answer your question, is consistent generally with the height of the towers that we've seen in recent years. I'd say generally they're between 100 and 150 feet in height.
And then technology has come about and made this maybe with other types of towers that it's safer, and the ability to have adjusted, I guess, is what we're seeing right here, right?
Yes. So the towers are, as far as the fall zone, are often engineered to collapse upon itself, and I think that's what this one is engineered to, where it's got like a collapsing point midway through the tower where it would fall on its within, kind of fall on itself within that modified fall radius. And the only structures that are located within the fall radius that's depicted on the tower are the structures that are associated with the tower. It doesn't even, that fall radius doesn't even go into the parking lot of the shopping center at the rear of it. It stays all within that grassy area.
Okay.
All right, any further questions for staff? Mr. Sandifer, would you like to add anything to the application? Feel free to come up to the podium for us.
Good afternoon. My name's Michael Sandifer. I'm representing Vogue Towers, the project manager developing this project. I can add a little bit to the questions you had regarding the tower and the fall zone, if that's helpful. I think it was explained very well. Essentially, towers nowadays are designed with what I'll call a weak link. If you can imagine either a golf club shaft or an umbrella, if it's ever, once it kinks, it goes over. Essentially, you can do that. And how that's done is basically from the foundation and the bottom half is over-designed, therefore creating kind of a weak point at some point, whether it's at the 50%, 55, 60, wherever the height we designate to meet a certain fall zone area, they will over-engineer the bottom portion of that and essentially creating I hate to use weak link, but that's essentially what it is. And it'll fall over. As far as if it were still to fall like a tree, the insurance, I'm not aware anywhere of requiring like an insurance. I mean, we do bonds for like the landscaping and that kind of stuff and cleaning up, or removing it, if it's no longer being used.
I think the reason that I have that question is because we're next to a piece of property that is a public housing development for our senior citizens. And so we're in a situation where if that fall zone did exceed the 60 amount, you have the potential of injuring one of our most vulnerable citizens in Murfreesboro that don't have the ability to, repair themselves. And so I guess that was part of my thinking, was that with us having the responsibility of caring for these vulnerable citizens, what avenue would they have if some crazy accident happened, even if that breaking point shouldn't be into there. Now, it being 89 feet away from, being able to see this a little bit better, it's very unlikely but that was the source of my question.
Sure. And I will,
and it's an unusual event. We don't usually have these next to a public housing facility for. Right.
And that facility just to the east was actually a candidate trying to go on the rooftop. AT&T is up there.
Yeah.
So that was one of the options looked at early on in the project. Towers are governed by certain engineering standards that exceed most all building standards. I generally tell people that if the tower were to come down, heaven forbid, that you've got great catastrophic concerns all around because these generally survive as far as like wind loading and conditions, even ice on them, et cetera, that, short of something a tornado dropping directly on it this will be standing far past a lot of other structures.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions for Mr. Sandiford? I think we'll let you go. Thank you for your comments. At this time, we'll conduct a public hearing. If there's anyone present wishing to speak for or against this application, if you come forward and provide us any comments you may have and give us your name and address as well. Seeing none, we'll declare the public hearing closed and open the floor for any further discussion or a motion on this application.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve this special use permit based on the information we have. It appears that there's no adverse effects upon adjacent properties or doesn't interfere with any other. It's compatible with the other properties in the area, has substantial adequacy with the public facilities around it, should not have any issue at all with natural, scenic, or historic importance of properties, and has complied with the standards of this provision. I would recommend the 5 conditions outlined by staff, that those be included in this motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, would you call the roll for us?
Ms. King?
Aye.
Aye.
Vice Chair Halliburton?
Aye.
Chair Young?
Aye. All right, so that application's been approved. Next, we'll move to our next application, Z24006, by Mr. Bradley Chambers, requesting a special use permit in order to conduct a home occupation, in this case, a real estate and construction office, And this is for property in a single-family residential RS10 zone, and the address is 2123 Middle Tennessee Boulevard. Mr. Aguilera, if you'd review this application for us.
Yes, thank you, Chair Young. It's been a while since I spoke to all of you, so I'm happy to be back here. I'd like to thank
missed.
I'd like to thank Mr. Blomley for presenting my two previous applications. I was battling COVID during the Oakland High School barn application, and then the family daycare home application. I was battling the New York Metro system. I was on vacation.
He still owes me.
That's why I have three of these applications back to back. So. But great to be back. So the second application on our agenda today is a home occupation at 2123 Middle Tennessee Boulevard. The applicant, Brad Chambers, is requesting a special use permit application to operate a home occupation there at that property for a real estate and construction office. As you can see in staff's analysis of the report, the property is zoned single-family residential, RS10, and is located in the City Core Overlay District. As required, because he will be generating traffic and will be having a sign on the property, he is required to apply for a special use permit application for the home occupation. So of the proposed use, as you can see in your summary, the applicant will be remodeling an existing house to operate the home occupation out of this property. I will show you some photos as it currently is going on right now. That proposed, that house is currently seeing some improvements so it can continue to be used to continue that life of the house and where he will be operating his business. Per the applicant's written statement, the proposed office will be used by Mr. Chambers and will be used for receiving mail, reviewing plans, contracts, and meeting with clients. As Mr. Chambers has stated in his written statement, they will be seeing an average of 1 to 2 clients per day, but up to a maximum of 5 clients. But again, those will be made via appointment and will be, again, on average about 1 to 2 clients per day. The hours of operation will be between Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. This is consistent with what we've seen with previous home occupations that have come before you all. Per the applicant's letter, there will be no construction equipment stored on this property. This is mainly just to be, again, used for his office, for his real estate and construction office, again, to review plans and meet with clients. And so they understand, he understands that there will be no construction equipment or heavy equipment be allowed to be stored on the property. The only type of equipment that will be used in conjunction with this use is your typical office supplies and office equipment, computer, desk, etc. The approximate square footage of the house is 2,322 square feet. The office will be occupying 324 square feet, which equates to 14% of the total square footage, which is, again, underneath the maximum 25% square footage allowed for a home occupation. Per the applicant's written summary and the attached rows, as you've seen, there will be some exterior and interior improvements made for this proposed use. The applicant has stated in the drawing he's used here, the existing driveway will be improved to allow customers to pull into the front and park in front of the house, as well as the existing driveway will be extended to the side so they can continue to pull forward for him to use as well. But that will be approved. Staff requested that, and the applicant agreed to that as well, to make these kind of improvements to ensure that no person has to back out of Middle Tennessee Boulevard. Middle Tennessee Boulevard is a major arterial, so we just wanted to ensure that there's adequate turn and efficiency of parking for any clients that may come. And so, again, just to avoid any kind of safety concerns when pulling out of that. The applicant has stated that one exterior sign will be posted and confirmed that it will not exceed the maximum 3 square feet, which is in conformance with the zoning ordinance. Staff has reviewed the application for the compliance of standards of general applicability, as well as the additional standards for home occupation. Staff believes that those standards has been met. As required per Section 9, the applicant shall present evidence to show how they, to demonstrate how they complied with those general standards and additional standards for home occupation. That has been included with the procedural form that you see before you now. Again, staff did not find any issues with the standards of general applicability. The current proposed use of the property is and generally in compliance with what we've seen with other previous home occupations. It is an existing house and will also be continued to use as an existing house. This is not an intensive commercial type use, and in ways, Middle Tennessee Boulevard does have adjacent commercial uses in that area. As you saw from the aerial photo, there is the neighborhood market that is located north of the subject property here, as well as the boulevard and other restaurant uses across the street. So there will be no major or adverse impacts to Middle Tennessee Boulevard because there are some of those existing uses today. For the additional standards for a home occupation, again, staff believes that the applicant has demonstrated compliance with those standards. The applicant has confirmed that they will be the only employee working at the proposed office, that there will only be one exterior sign, and again, that the exterior improvements will be made to the home will again allow for the to continue the life of the house and will allow for it to still be used as a house. And again, there will be no display of products or equipment with that property. And again, with standard number 4, the applicant has demonstrated with their floor plan that they will not be exceeding that 25% floor area used for the home occupation. Overall, in conclusion, staff believes that this applicant in application has met those standards for general applicability and additional standards for home occupation, and requests that this special use permit be recommended approval subject to the following conditions of approval. The 9 conditions of approval are listed for you on your review. If you have any questions, I'm here for to answer any of them. The applicant, Mr. Brad Chambers, is in the audience as well, should you have any questions.
Mr. Aguilera, would you mind reading those into the record, the conditions?
Yes. So the conditions of approval we have, number 1, customer visits shall be by appointment only. No more than one customer. The second condition, no more than one customer shall visit the home-based business, and there shall be no overlapping of customer appointments. Any proposed signage shall comply with the zoning ordinance, including that it must be attached and cannot exceed 3 square feet. Signage shall be subject to any applicable permitting requirements. Standard for the home-based business, hours of operation shall be from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. The business shall be closed on Saturday and Sunday and shall not be in operation before 9 a.m. or after 4 p.m. any other day of the week. Standard number 5, the home-based business shall not begin operation until the applicant physically resides on the property and it is his primary residence. That standard is a little bit different than what we see previously with applications, and that's just because, again, Mr. Brad Chambers is currently remodeling and updating that property, and so when that becomes his permanent residence, he will be allowed to operate that home occupation. Continuing on, 6, all parking associated with the in-home office shall only be on the driveway and on the subject property. Standard 7. Condition 7, the applicant shall obtain all the required permits and pass all the required inspections with the Building and Codes Department prior to the opening of the business at this location. Condition number 8, applicant should include a signed copy of the BZA approval letter with the business license, application materials, and condition 9, the special use permit shall lapse upon the sale or transfer of the property when the applicant ceases to reside there.
I know we've reviewed standard 5 that no mechanical or electrical equipment would be used in the dwelling. However, people I know who have construction businesses don't only have mechanical or electronic equipment inside their business, but they often have trucks or construction vehicles. And oftentimes those come home to their house or they go to different places, particularly if they are running out of, I've got a friend that's in the county and he has a landscaping business, and there's different vehicular equipment that comes home with him from time to time. Is that, how do we address that in this situation? I don't think I've ever been present for a review when it comes to a business that was related to construction, because I don't see that in the standard here. I don't know if that's addressed in this ordinance particularly, or if that's something that has been, how do we address vehicles? Because this is a residential, and I despite it being in a commercial, a semi-commercial area, I certainly wouldn't want to set a precedent where a commercial vehicle, a construction vehicle, could be an everyday occurrence in a neighborhood.
Yes, ma'am. So with these standards, construction equipment and everything, from our interpretation, usually from Mr. Balmy may be able to correct me as well. But generally from that, when we mean construction equipment, that includes that vehicle as well with those types of, those facilities, that equipment, any type of materials that may come. That's what we generally mean. With administrative home occupations, we do stress to those as well. If they do have a landscaping business, if they have those types of vehicles that cannot be stored on there. So that's how we've been enforcing it. I think that's what Mr. Balmy can correct me as well with that.
Yeah, and the sixth standard says there shall be no storage outside a principal building or accessory structure of equipment or materials used in connection with the home occupation. And Mr. Chambers in his response to that said no items will be stored outside or on the property. And so I guess what I would ask is to.
It's just not specific as to vehicle, like, there's just, the way that that's worded doesn't specify vehicles, and I think that that's what's assumed in this application, and I understand that. I just don't know if we've ever, at least not in the 10 years I've been, I don't know if anybody recalls, and you can refresh my, Mr. Tips, thank you for refreshing my memory on the other one today, but I certainly wouldn't want to set a precedence where if that's an oversight where somebody starts parking a,
I think
construction vehicle in their.
I think now would be a good time for Mr. Chambers to address the vehicles that he will have and to affirm what he indicated in his application materials.
Yeah, so that driveway as it sits, I mean, I could probably park my one daily driver truck that I do use for construction, but there's not enough room to park trailers or anything out there.
Well, that was part of my concern, is that there isn't enough room to have clients as well as a trailer or
right. So I
backhoe
got other
or-
properties around town, and that's where we park our skids and the dump trailers and other commercial vehicles.
Okay.
So.
And I think
My question was more like, is that something that we need to include as a condition in our?
I think that's certainly, if the board feels that that's appropriate, I think that's certainly within your purview to do that. To,
Maybe I'm overboard, but I think that there would probably be some neighborhoods in town that would have more concern than this particular property, and I'm not concerned, I don't have a personal concern about your property as much as I do the potential that we could have in future applications, and want to make sure that we address those now before setting a precedent that we can have construction businesses in even more residential neighborhoods that have more concerns.
you may, if it's the board's wish, you may add another condition, something to the effect of no business vehicles other than the applicant's personal work truck shall be allowed to be parked at the property.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on Ms. King's comment, so I live in a neighborhood. We've got a guy, he's got 2 work trucks, he's got 2 utility trailers, and then he's got this equipment trailer that, so there's no way for this guy to be able to park all his stuff in his driveway. So he parks his stuff in front of his neighbor's yard, front of their house, and then his house. Of course, there's no way for you to do that on Middle Tennessee Boulevard. I get that. But I'm just saying Ms. King's comments have merit, because this guy's sometime parking in the grass between he and his neighbor just because he doesn't have enough room to park all of his trailers and equipment
And
now.
that's somebody that doesn't have a at-home occupation.
No,
Like,
But that's just an example of what she's talking about.
And we see times when people come before us with lots of neighbors that come with, and have concerns, and so we are mindful of those communities in every application, and so it not to.
Right.
I had another question about, as you're thinking about that, looking at your drawing and diagram is actually how many parking spaces are you really even going to have, to the extent that even, your personal vehicle or your work vehicle, and then, you know, how many more spaces do you know, would you have anyways, given the size of this lot and the way you've got your drive, you know, diagram there? That's a question on that part.
So, if you look on the picture, do y'all see that picture?
Yeah, I saw that picture.
Yeah,
and
so I got a
would
16
I mean,
foot.
just guessing, I'm seeing that you probably have at best 2 spaces.
Right, and I can only have one client at the office.
Yeah, and that was another question I had really of staff, but go ahead, but that's what your intent is.
Well, and I
Yes,
think,
I mean-
Mr. Chambers, if I'm not mistaken, the little storage building.
That's gone.
Is,
And so the driveway continues up on the right side of the house. So I would pull all the way forward,
Okay,
and then clients could come in, turn left,
yeah.
and then they could turn right,
So basically, you could probably have 2 cars, pull in, pull out. Right?
for sure.
Okay. So a question I mean, not necessarily directed here, but given that it says no more than 1 customer at a time, that's one condition. Other, that the only employee that can be there is actually him. And when you take those particular 2 things out, and the timeline with which he can be open, or a person applying like this could be open, do our codes enforcement go in and say, hey, you got too many, you know, are they, maybe this may be for the attorney instead of you, but
I
are they
can,
able to cite somebody for, you know, because, well, you've got this person now working for you, and I just, that seems a little bit cumbersome to say that he can't hire somebody, you know, at least one person, and I guess then that brings it back into the issues of parking, but.
so I can touch on this a little bit, because actually we did one of them. There was a hair salon that was operating. It was previously approved by this board. Teresa Stevens, they went through the process of getting that sign as, you know, with those conditions of approval. They did go out there and they did inspect the property, and they did find that not only was the sign too big, but they had an additional illuminated sign. And so that goes with the inspection, not only with this process, but they do follow-ups with that. If there's a complaint from the neighbor, that is something that we will follow up on as well to determine we will, you know, do an investigation into that. We'll get the story from them. And so that is part of this process. There is a little bit of checks and balances that come with that, and that they will look at, and they will have a copy with that, because there was a remodel with it. There was a process involved with that. And so we do include those conditions of approval with that permitting, with that inspection with them.
and I also wanted to add on to that this isn't saying that he can't have any employees. It's just saying that he can't have any employees that work at this
That's where
at this address.
I mean, that's
Yeah,
where
so-
I'm getting.
Yeah, so he can have other employees, but as far as zoning enforcement, 95% of our zoning enforcement is complaint based, because we have one inspector in our department, and that's really the best way for us to find out that there is a violation or a potential violation, is the people who are the eyes and the ears after hours. Let us know if there is something going on that they feel might be a violation. So if we received a complaint, we would, our inspector would investigate it and take appropriate enforcement action. And if the applicant did not come into compliance with the zoning ordinance, our ordinance allows us to bring the special use permit back to the Board of Zoning Appeals for revocation if an applicant refuses to conform to the conditions of approval.
If he can only have 1 customer at a time, then what if, like, my husband and I go to a real estate agent together, you know, or we would go to construction office together to talk about a remodel at our house. So, like, how would he be able to address clients like that?
I think that we would interpret that liberally to be, I think it's more about the number of vehicles than it is about the number of.
We might be coming from 2 different places, so we might have to both take a vehicle. So I mean,
Park over at the boulevard.
we're gonna have to, my husband's gonna have to pick me up at Jimmy John's so that I can go.
Yes, I think so, and I think that if he's having more than customers that are arriving in more than one vehicle, he's going to make arrangements to meet them off-site somewhere, because that would not comply with the conditions of approval.
Well, I personally have had a home-based business in the past, and didn't, I guess, in a sense, I had a person who wasn't actually an employee, but they were doing bookkeeping work, and they came to my house and did this, and I'm just concerned maybe for the applicant and others, and maybe this is just the way it's written in with the ordinances, that you can't have at least one person, another person employed working there.
Yeah, but if it's, I mean, but this also applies to hair salons, and that's not like that, I mean, then you'd have two people doing hair in somebody's house instead of just it being that person's at-home hair salon.
Yeah, I get it, but I'm still, want to raise the issue, I guess, a little bit, but, it's certainly, if this is what, I guess this is the standard, and that's what we had to comply with, and we wouldn't be able to necessarily amend that for a clerical type person as opposed to a practicing, to use your example, a hairstylist or so.
I think he would just have to, like I said before, we're not prohibiting him from having employees like that, but he would just have to make arrangements to meet them off-site somewhere, like at a coffee shop or somewhere else where they could conduct business that wasn't at his home.
Okay.
Any further questions for staff, or Mr. Chambers, anything you'd like to add that we didn't touch on? All right, thank you. This time we'll conduct a public hearing. Is there anyone present wishing to speak for or against this application? If so, if you'd come to the podium. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and open the floor for any further discussion or motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve, subject to all staff comments. I don't feel like that this will have a substantial or undue adverse effect on any of the adjacent properties, especially in this location. It would be compatible with the immediate vicinity. Based upon the measures of the application, he would have the essential public facilities and services to handle this location. It would not, it's not going to be a significant natural, scenic, or historic importance and destruction of any of those items, and it complies with all additional standards imposed as part of this zoning ordinance.
I second the motion.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call the roll for us.
Ms. King,
Aye.
Mr. Tips,
Aye.
Vice Chair Halliburton,
Aye.
Chair Young.
Aye. All right, that application's been approved. Next, we'll move to application Z24007 by Mr. Percy Jenkins, representing Mr. Percy Jenkins III. They're requesting a special use permit in order to construct and establish an accessory apartment in a single-family residential RS-15 zone. This is for property located at 2729 Jim Houston Court. Mr. Aguilar, if you'd review this one for us.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The next item we have, as mentioned, this is a special use permit application to establish an accessory apartment at 2729 Jim Houston Court. The applicant, Mr. Percy Jenkins, for his son, the applicant, Percy Jenkins III, for his son who owns this property, is requesting to do an accessory apartment for family members and in-laws when they reside and stay on the property when they visit. As you can see in the staff's analysis, they are proposing an accessory apartment. This accessory apartment will be approximately 15 feet in height, and the accessory apartment floor area will be approximately 650 square feet in area. This property is zoned RS-15, so as you all are aware, per our standards, if you want to, should you choose to establish an accessory apartment in a single-family residential zoning district, you are required to get an special use permit application to go before the Board of Zoning Appeals. The applicant has submitted a plot plan as required per our process to show where the proposed accessory structure and accessory apartment will be going. This is shown up on the screen here as well. You can see where that proposed location is at. Staff's analysis, you all see a table that has been provided for your analysis and your review. As proposed, staff believes that the accessory apartment and the structure itself complies with the applicable bulk development standards. As you can see, again, the maximum floor area for this accessory apartment is 650 square feet. Maximum building height is 15 feet, and the minimum building setbacks for an accessory structure are you must be 60 feet from a front property line, 10 feet behind the front facade of a house, 5 feet away from the house, and 5 feet away from side and rear property lines. As you can see in the plot plan and on the table, the applicant is compliant with those bulk development standards. The accessory apartment, there is a floor plan that has been attached with this. The accessory apartment will have a kitchen, a living area, 1 bath, as well as a garage space for any of the parking. The applicant is aware and understands that they cannot convert the garage space to be a part of the accessory apartment, as that will contribute to that floor area and would exceed that 700 square feet floor area. And so in staff's review, we believe that this application is compliant with those, again, the minimum development standards for accessory structure and accessory apartment. In addition, it is recommended that the applicant be required to complete and record the standard restriction of land use document prepared by a city attorney. Document states the accessory apartment can only be occupied by a family member or an invited guest and cannot be in any circumstances used as a rental unit. Recording it memorializes the restriction to put future buyers and owners on notice for that. And the applicant is aware of this standard and is intending to comply with that requirement. As required per Section 9, the applicant is required to provide evidence on their provide evidence that in the demonstration that they comply with the general standards of applicability and additional standards for accessory apartments. In review of the general standards, staff believes that this applicant and the proposed accessory structure and accessory apartment meets those standards. The proposed accessory structure will not have any adverse effect to the neighborhood. As of right now, as you can see from that aerial that we showed earlier, a lot of these houses are 2-story. The existing neighborhood is majority brick, and the applicant from those elevations shown in that exhibit will be utilizing brick material with this proposed accessory structure and will not be exceeding that height of that zoning district. And so again, staff believes that the applicant meets those general standards of applicability. For the additional standards for accessory apartment uses, staff believes that this application and the applicant has met those standards. The applicant has confirmed that the owner, Percy Jenkins III, will reside on the property in the principal structure, and the accessory apartment will only be used for family. They understand and have agreed to the restriction of land use, restriction on use of land as recommended by the planning department for all accessory apartments. As you can see, again, from the table that we have provided for those additional standards for accessory apartments, to ensure that it's being designed and compatible with the neighborhood, the applicant has met those standards and complies with those minimum bulk development standards. You can see, again, in those standards how far they will be from the front and rear property lines, how far they will be from the side, and again, reviewing the floor area that they have complied with that as well. In addition to this, we have requested that, of course, that they, it is recommended that they record the restriction land use, and with that, that is included with those conditions of approval. In conclusion to this application, staff believes that this applicant has met those development standards and met the general standards and additional standards for accessory apartment, and that we recommend that it be approved subject to the following conditions, those 4 conditions listed here. Are we reading off these as well?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. I just want to confirm that. Those following conditions are, condition 1, the owners of the property for this accessory apartment unit shall occupy at least one of the dwelling units on the premise, and members of the family or invited guests shall occupy the other dwelling unit, and no event shall either of the units be used as a rental unit to non-family members. 2, condition 2, the garage portion of the proposed accessory apartment shall not be converted to be or be used as part of the accessory apartment. Condition 3, Prior to applying for building permits, the applicant shall complete and record the restriction on use of land document prepared by the city attorney, which shall limit the use of the accessory apartment to only what is allowed by the zoning ordinance. In condition 4, the applicant shall obtain all the necessary permits with the Building and Codes Department and shall comply with all the code requirements. I am here if you have any questions. Mr. Jenkins as well, I believe, is also in the audience, should you have any questions. We did get comments for this application that has been included as one of the printed materials. One person did email in voicing support of this, as they believe as well that this complies with the minimum development standards for accessory structures and accessory apartments. I'm here if you have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
One of the comments that's made in this email that Joel's referencing is, and I can't remember if it's an automatic deal or we would just need, if it's approved, we would just need to do this as part of our motion, but that it being clear that this special use permit is with respects to Mr. Jenkins and not in perpetuity.
So we've talked about that at previous meetings, and I think the restriction on land use is our kind of our avenue to put future owners on notice. I think in the past we've decided against putting a condition upon the special use permit lapsing upon transfer of the property because, you know, as opposed to the special use permit lapsing upon when Mr. Chambers ceases his business, there are really no physical modifications to be made, and but if this special use permit lapses, it would trigger physical modifications to the structure, and we don't monitor property transfers, and so it would be darn near impossible to enforce. And so what we've opted to do instead of that is to recommend that you place this condition of approval of the restriction on land use, and the restriction on land use doesn't restrict it to anything other than what the zoning ordinance restricts it to, but what the primary purpose is to put future owners on notice of how the accessory apartment can be used so that people don't buy the house with false expectations of hey, I got a rental unit that I can use here when the zoning ordinance would not allow that. So
What if you rent the whole property out? I mean, how many neighborhoods, like, there's plenty of neighborhoods that you rent the house. So if I rent the house to somebody and then they have another person pay them a sublease, like how?
that would not be permitted by the zoning ordinance.
The owner has to reside on the property.
By ordinance, the owner of the property is required to live in one of the two units.
So a future buyer would have to know that they are buying this property and that they have to live in it, that they cannot buy this and then rent it out later. But we don't govern the sale of property.
Correct. Yeah, and at some point, the buyers.
I think that there's so many houses that are rented in Murfreesboro. I think that there's the potential that this person, like, that could be rented, the whole house, the whole place could be rented out.
I mean, there are always those variables that are, those situations that may happen that we would just have to cross those bridges when we come to it, because it's.
Sorry.
We do the best we can in ensuring that the zoning ordinance is followed, but, there are situations that we may run into just like that.
I thought what we had done in the past was that we were requiring people when they bought a property like this to come forward and obtain their own special use permit.
For an accessory apartment?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that we've done that in the past.
Gotcha.
Well, back to another example of the previous application. If a nearby property owner found out that Mr. Jenkins was not occupying the primary residence, wouldn't the course of action be to come before this board and then what are the penalties and how is it enforced?
So if we're made aware that one of those two units is not being occupied by the owner of the property, be it Mr. Jenkins or a successor in ownership, then we would put the owner on notice that that is not in compliance with the zoning ordinance. If after a reasonable period of time, they did not come into compliance, we would either move towards citation to city court, or we would bring it to the Board of Zoning Appeals for revocation of the special use permit. And if the revocation was approved, then we would require them to make physical modifications to the structure to eliminate the accessory apartment, physically eliminate it.
So take out the oven. I'm kidding. I just know that if you don't have an oven, you don't have an accessory apartment.
Yeah, yeah. If you don't have provisions for cooking, that's correct. But it could not be used in such a manner as to, we would still only allow, a maximum of 4 unrelated people to live on the property. So it wouldn't be, it would have to be used as an extension of the house as opposed to being used as a separate dwelling unit. And all of these things, it's imperfect to enforce.
Sure.
Zoning, there are a lot of gray areas, and as much as planners would like to think sometimes that there are the gray areas are few and far between, sometimes there are situations that happen that we have to use our best judgment in enforcing our ordinances.
So this neighbor that has a concern about future homeowners that she doesn't know, because she clearly is comfortable with her neighbors as is, but the potential future homeowner that abuses this property and doesn't abide by the special use permit, she would need to contact the city if she sees an abundance of vehicles in the driveway or has any indication that she believes there's renting going on rather than it being a place for family visitation or
Yes, that's correct.
a family member that needs to live there long term.
And then we would initiate an investigation on it.
Okay.
Any further questions for Mr. Aguilera? Mr. Jenkins, anything you'd like to add to the application?
I just want to say thank you for the city staff working with us on this, and that restriction, we don't have any problem with it. We're trying to work with our mortgage company, and hopefully we can get with somebody. It's been an ordeal with them. And the city said they would work with us on that. But we don't have any problem with the restriction. My son and daughter-in-law, they have, my daughter-in-law's family's from Knoxville, and they come down to see them about once a month, and the grandkids, and they like to visit, and her sister does too. So that's one reason. And then my son wants another garage, so they can park another vehicle in the garage, keep it out of the weather. So I can answer any questions. We will build the garage just like the house, the same brick. I've already checked on that, and so it's going to be, just like the house, same aesthetics and stuff.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Jenkins? Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. Next, we'll hold the public hearing. Is there anyone present wishing to speak for or against this application? If you'd come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and open the floor for any further discussion or motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the application for special use permit along with the conditions, the 4 conditions outlined by the staff that it needs to comply with. In review of all of this, it's apparent that it doesn't conflict or any adverse effects on adjacent properties. It's constructed to be compatible with the development where it's located, that it's obviously it has the essential public facilities that it needs to exist as an accessory dwelling unit. There's no damage to any, should not be any destruction or loss or damage to natural, scenic, or historic properties, and it's it appears to comply with all the standards imposed by the provisions of this zoning ordinance.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, will you call the roll for us?
Ms. King,
Aye.
Mr. Tips?
Aye.
Vice Chair Halliburton?
Aye.
Chair Young?
Aye. All right, that application's been approved. Next, we'll move to application Z24008 by Mr. Brian Vaughn, who is requesting a special use permit in order to construct and establish an accessory apartment in a single-family residential RS8 zone. This is for property at 133 January Street. Mr. Aguilera, if you'd review this one for us.
Thank you, Chairman. This next item we have is a special use permit request to construct and establish an accessory apartment at 133 January Street. The applicant, Mr. Brian Vaughn, will be moving to this property, constructing this for his mother-in-law to reside in at the accessory apartment. This request is a little bit more unique. As you can see in this staff report, the applicant will be demolishing the existing home at 133 January Street. As they said, they will be moving to this property. They will be demolishing the existing home at 133 January Street to construct a new single-family dwelling in conjunction alongside with this accessory apartment. The reason we say this is because if you look at the GIS or ortho aerial that's included with your staff report, the house footprint, it looks different. It's shifted, and that is the reason why. We have told the staff has requested to the applicant that even though the new single-family home does not require review and approval from the Board of Zoning Appeal, we did request that he put in the new single-family home, its new footprint in this plot plan so he could utilize the same plot plan for when he would apply for building permits later on. Continuing on with the request of this accessory apartment, the new accessory apartment structure will be a single story, approximately 17 feet in height. An accessory apartment would be 626 square feet in area. As said by you, Mr. Chairman, the property is zoned RS8, and to establish an accessory apartment in the single-family zoning district, he is required to get a special use permit application. As depicted on this site plan and as depicted on your staff report and then staff analysis, the proposed accessory structure does comply with the minimum development standards as well as the development standards for an accessory apartment. Again, it will be located some feet behind the front property line, as well as be more than 10 feet behind the front facade of the house and be 5 feet away from side and rear property lines and 5 feet away from the house. The interior of the accessory apartment will feature a kitchen, living area, laundry room, bedroom, and bathrooms, and a garage space. As with the previous application, with this one, the applicant is aware and understands that they are not allowed to convert the garage space to be a part of the accessory apartment, as it would, again, exceed that 700 square feet maximum floor area. Proposed structure will be using hardy plank material, which is consistent with the proposed dwelling that we see with accessory apartments in this neighborhood. As said with the previous application, it is recommended that the applicant be required to complete and record the standard restriction of land use of land document prepared by the city attorney. This document states again that the accessory apartment can only be occupied by a family member or invited guests and cannot be in any circumstances be used as a rental unit. Recorded and memorializes the restriction to put future buyers and owners on notice. Again, the applicant is aware of this restriction, is aware of this requirement, and has agreed to it and will accommodate that. As required for Section 9, again, the applicant is required to produce evidence to demonstrate on how they will meet the general standards of applicability as well as the additional standards for accessory apartments. Staff believes that the general standards of applicability has been met. There had been no adverse effect to the neighborhood or adjacent properties. As you can see from the elevation and those materials provided, the accessory apartment will be designed in a way that will mimic the same character of the neighborhood that has that hardy plank material and will mimic the existing cottage-style homes that are in that neighborhood as well. Traffic patterns are not anticipated to be changing with this, and there are no changes to the existing utility facilities. Staff believes again that there are, with the review of the neighborhood, there are no historic features or significant features in this neighborhood that will be impacted, and so staff believes that the applicant has met those general standards of applicability. For the additional standards of an accessory apartment, the applicant has provided evidence and provided information on how they will be complying with those additional standards in the procedure form. The applicant understands that only one accessory apartment is permitted on lot and will only be constructing one accessory apartment to be used for family. The applicant, with the second condition, the second standard, the applicant understands that the owner is to reside on the property, and he will be residing on the property at 133 January Street. With the other additional standards for accessory apartment, and again, the design of the accessory apartment will comply with those additional standards. It will mimic, again, the existing elements of the neighborhood, the cottage-style homes, and be using hardy plank materials, and the accessory apartment will be complying with those minimum bulk development standards for accessory structures. In conclusion, staff believes that the applicant has met and demonstrated compliance with the additional standards for accessory apartments. Staff believes that with the applicant meeting these general standards of applicability and the additional standards, we recommend approval subject to the following conditions that are listed underneath. Those 4 conditions are condition 1, that the owners of the property for this accessory apartment unit shall occupy at least one of the dwelling units on the premises, and members of the family or their invited guests shall occupy the other dwelling unit. In no event shall either of the units be used as a rental unit to non-family members. Condition 2, that the garage portion of the proposed accessory structure shall not be converted to be or be used as part of the accessory apartment. Condition 3, that prior to applying for building permits, the applicant shall complete and record the restriction on use of land document prepared by the city attorney, which shall limit the use of the accessory apartment to only be what is allowed by the zoning ordinance. And the condition 4, the applicant shall obtain all the necessary permits with the Building and Codes Department and shall comply with all the code requirements. I am here if you have any questions. Mr. Vaughn, as well as is in the audience, should you have any questions for him.
Thank you. Any questions for staff at this point? I'll let you off easy. Mr. Vaughn, anything you'd like to add to the application?
I don't think so. I mean, if it's clear, there's nothing that.
All right. I guess next we'll move to the public hearing. If there's anyone present wishing to speak for or against this application, if you'd come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and open the floor for any further discussion or motion.
There's no discussion. I'll move to approve the application with conditions set by staff. The special use permit conditions required by an applicant for the BZA have been met, and I believe that it would be an appropriate approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If you'd call the roll for us.
Ms. King,
Aye.
Mr. Tips,
Aye.
Vice Chair Halliburton,
Aye.
Chair Young.
Aye. Right, so that application's been approved. Next, we'll move to application Z24009 by Mr. Mark McAlpin, representing Bel Air Baptist Church, who's requesting a special use permit in order to expand an institutional group assembly use, in this case a church, in a single-family residential RS15 zone, as well as a multifamily residential RM12 zone. This is for property located at 1307 North Rutherford Boulevard. Mr. Donovan, if you'd review this for us.
Thank you, Chair Young. Yes, before you this afternoon, you have a special use permit to expand a existing institutional group assembly, Bel Air Baptist Church, located at the corner of North Rutherford and Old West Cassis Road. So just a little overview of the area surrounding it. The land uses: to the north, you have a couple of existing quick service restaurants. To the east, you have Victoria Place and Rutherford Woodlands Apartments. And then to the south, you have a small single-family neighborhood that exists. And then to the west, you have a Centerpoint Church and vacant land. As the chair mentioned, this property is split zoned. It has 3 zoning classifications in CF, RM12, and RS15. The CF and RM12 actually allow this use by right. It's the RS-15 that requires the special use permit and has landed this on your docket today. So what's occurring on the side is a small expansion to the southwest corner of the property. I'm going to get down to the site plan that they've provided so that I can show you. Is they are adding a small dumpster enclosure on that southwest corner, as well as a freezer enclosure. It's about an 11 by 11 dumpster enclosure and a 39 by 27 freezer enclosure. The intent, they've indicated that they're going to brick this to match the current facades of the church. So you're going to have, it's going to match the current, the building. It's in an area where there's an existing loading dock. It's not going to affect that loading dock. It's being put right adjacent to it. The loading dock would still be able to be utilized. It's actually where their dumpster is sitting currently. This would actually move the dumpster into a defined location. That current dumpster is unscreened as well. So this would actually give the dumpster a place to actually be housed. They've indicated that this is going to be used a couple times a week by only 2 or 3 people. So this isn't anything that's going to be a high volume of traffic. It's going to be in their off-peak times. They have a very large parking lot already that exceeds our regulations, and they're not proposing to add any additional parking to the facility. So staff has reviewed the information they submitted for general standards of applicability and the institutional and group assembly specific uses. The application appears to be in good order. They've met all of those requirements. If the Board of Zoning Appeal does choose to approve this, staff does have 2 conditions that they are recommending to you. The first being BZA approval does not imply approval of the site plan. A site plan shall be submitted for review and approval subject to Murfreesboro zoning ordinance and design guidelines. And 2, a landscaping plan shall be submitted for review and approval for landscaping the surrounding enclosure. They indicated we met with them. They intended to provide some landscaping. The site plan doesn't show that landscaping. We just want to make sure that we get it documented where we have it on hard copy.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Mr. McAlpin or representatives from the applicant, anything they'd like to add?
Mr. Chairman, board members, thank you so much for considering this. Mark McAlpin, I'm the executive pastor at Baylor Baptist Church. What we're proposing is it's a combination of 2 local ministries, Baylor Baptist Church and a group called Last Call for Grace. And Last Call for Grace primarily feeds the homeless. Mm-hmm. And so every Tuesday and every Friday, they utilize our kitchen facilities and prepare, 200 to 300 meals that are served throughout the community. Somebody had donated this very large refrigerator freezer to Last Call for Grace. And what this allows us to do is right now, because of lack of storage space, a lot of food has to be turned away. And so this way, they'll be able to stock up and hopefully continue to feed the homeless in Murfreesboro. So again, thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. All right, next we'll conduct a public hearing. Is there anyone present wishing to speak for or against this application? If you'd come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and open the floor for any further discussion or motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the application for special use permit as presented. It appears from the information provided that there's no adverse effect on any of the adjacent properties, that it's going to be compatible with the immediate vicinity of the area, that it has very adequate public facilities and services, should not have any impact at all upon any natural, scenic, or historic properties, and it is in compliance with the conditions of the ordinances for this type of use. That approval also carries with it the conditions set forth by the staff for approval of the site plan and the landscaping plan to be approved along with it.
I'll second the motion.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, would you call the roll for us?
Ms. King,
Aye.
Mr. Tips,
Aye.
Vice Chair Halliburton,
Aye.
Chair Young.
Aye. All right, so the application's been approved. Appreciate everybody's time. Next item, staff reports and other business.
Just a couple things. Chairman Young, next month, Mr. Donovan will be in this chair right here. So I've filled in, working with y'all for the last 5 or 6 months after Ms. Rush transferred to a different city department. And I'll still be attending the meetings and assisting Mr. Donovan and Mr. Aguilera and Mr. Barbie. But you know, our goal is to have the Board of Zoning, have one of our principal planners be the primary advisor to the Board of Zoning Appeals. And so we are very excited about having Mr. Donovan on board and the knowledge and experience and expertise that he brings. So he will be manning this seat next month, and I'll be out there in the audience.
Just a shout away.
That's right. Ready to assist any way I can. But wanted to let you know that he'll be kind of taking over the role that Ms. Rush inhabited with the Board of Zoning Appeals for several years, and so we're really excited about Mr. Donovan and what he brings to the table and what he's going to be able to do to help y'all as y'all work through these applications that we get. So that's the first order of business. Second order of business, I wanted to mention, I emailed to y'all a continuing education opportunity for 1.5 hours. Mr. Tips, I think you went to it in person.
Mm-hmm.
But if anybody's interested, it was a 1.5 hour seminar that was on growth and development in the region that Cumberland Region Tomorrow put on at MTSU back in February. They've released the video for that, and for some reason they put it in 8 separate videos.
I've watched about a third of it, but I'm stuck in a spot, so I gotta get back on it again, but.
I don't know why they didn't just combine it into one video, but at any rate, if you are able to watch that, email me or Ms. Jaco so we can get you logged on our training log. Third thing, I wanted to mention that Mr. Hankins has been promoted to Deputy City Attorney, and so we'd like to congratulate him and let you know about his promotion, and he would like to make an introduction to y'all of someone new in his department.
Yes, the legal department has been through quite a bit of transition lately. David Ives announced his retirement. We're still trying to schedule the date that his retirement party is going to be, but we'll make sure you all get the invite on that. But he'll be around a little bit longer. He's working currently on a limited schedule, so if you do want to see him before the retirement party, give him some well wishes. Just call ahead to the office to make sure he's there. But yeah, with that, I am filling into his position, and coming into my position now is Mr. John Tully, who was recently hired as Assistant City Attorney. He comes to us from California. He is very happy and excited to be in Tennessee, and we're excited to have him.
Congratulations to both.
Yep.
Forward to working with you.
Thank you.
It seems like we have trouble holding on to people.
Yeah, what are we doing wrong to let everybody else? Yeah, look.
Does that mean
We
if you're-
ran David off after 20 years, so
Right, he hung around.
Well,
we need to do a
We're
better
gonna have
job with
Boston
retention.
Butts at his retirement.
What's that?
Is there going to be Boston Butts at his retirement?
Oh,
If he
yeah,
has
we
his
need
way.
to get the Boy Scouts to cater that.
That's
a good idea.
Mr. Tips, I'm coming up on 23 years with the city, so they've held on to me for a long time.
Does it mean that if you're in the crowd, you can't say anything?
I will be there as a resource if needed.
Oh, okay, excuse
Right.
me.
I'll
All right.
try not to
When Julie
overstep.
asks awkward questions, Matthew will give the answers.
All right, appreciate the information. I appreciate everybody's time. And with that, we'll adjourn.